services used to go through the sub-county administrations, which is you go to the county government or the chief, blah, blah, blah. And it was a tedious process. And you would move from one office to the other. I think they also rolled out the Huduma that period in time, Huduma centers. That same period, we added almost 600, was it 600 or 800? Kengen added, I think, an extra 800 megawatts of electricity to the national grid between 2013 and 2017. Someone can check that number, but it is around that space. It's around 700 to 800 megawatts of electricity into the national grid. We did the Turkana, the one in Marsabit. It's called the Turkana Wind Power. We did the Garissa solar plant. We added the geothermal. I think it's usually called Olkaria 4. We added it into the national grid. I can go on and on. Like, yes, they had some mistakes during that period, but you could see tangible results that happened. As I finish, this current administration has been repairing Kasarani, I don't know for how many years. That Bombers of Kenya, they kept saying they will complete. I think they couldn't even deliver that. The houses that they've been building, in fact, funny thing if you've never seen, is that they do not complete any housing project. Zikishamaliza kusimama tu, they are finishing, they've completed 4,500 units in the last 3.5 years, now 4 years. Yet they have almost 200,000 units in construction. The point is, immediately they finish any work that needs cement and steel, they stop doing it. So they can't finish these projects. They're not finishing them. Most of them are not being finished. But I know Eli will give me the mic later. But I just want to say, if you still want to vote for this administration, I beseech you, please don't. This is a mistake that we got ourselves into, and I think the Lord was trying to punish us. Hiyo kiboko tumeshapata sasa. We've learned our lesson. I've not spoken about additional taxes. I've not spoken about misappropriation. In fact, I think corruption levels that are in this administration alone, not a single time has William Ruto stopped even his most corrupt CS from work. He doesn't actually, he ignores anything corruption, all these scandals with SHA, scandals with hospitals, scandals on the roads, scandals whatever. This guy doesn't want to touch them, and he doesn't. I think for me, I made my mind 4 years ago. I will continue doing it until the day I mark that ballot paper to send him home. I hope you join me in that journey. Thank you. Bye. Obed, if you had a question, I'll pick it up. No problem.
All right, Obed, the mic is yours, and you've heard from Mr. Diamonds, who
Sorry,
is
just
very
confirm
unhappy.
I wasn't speaking to myself.
No, you're not speaking to yourself. I don't know if you can hear me.
Okay.
Eli?
Yes, Obed.
Yes,
Great.
We can hear you. Good evening.
So, good evening, and sorry, I just was trying to settle in when you are asking me to make a contribution, and it's bad manners to come and without even washing your hands and start having a conversation, literally. But the question on the streets or the ballot, what next for Gen Z? I think the question should be the streets or the ballot, what next for Kenyans? Because the reality is that there's a lot going on that is not what was expected or anticipated for those who probably didn't know who William Ruto is. And comparison has been made, and we've sat in spaces where people have actually even implied that the former president was a lazy person and didn't do his job. And we are here because of him. But I keep asking this question every day. If today you take over the reins or somebody gives you a car that you have taken and you're in control of it and it gets an accident, who is supposed to blame? Is it the person who gave you the car or the person who's driving it? William Ruto today and all that is supposed to be done, as a matter of fact, this country is going to the dogs, and worryingly so, because the rule of law doesn't make sense anymore. Corruption we don't even need to talk about it. Abductions and a lot of things that have gone that are really nasty. But then the most hurting thing is how he pulls wool on people's eyes and keeps insisting that he's doing a job and delivering. And you keep wondering, how foolish must he think we Kenyans are that we don't see what's going on? But then when you look at it again, you realize he's a man under siege. And siege in this sense. He had so many things he believed he could be able to do and be able to sway people a certain way, but it's not seeming to be working. And I keep saying that probably William Ruto curses his luck, that he's come into the government or become a president at the time when Kenyans are more informed or have access to information and are asking a lot of questions, and they're not shy from demanding for accountability. But half the time, Eli, Kenyans are good at complaining. We do this quite well. After every 5 years of elections, we complain. The last time people were told about William Ruto, they saw him as a victim. They loved him because he sounded like he was being maligned by the then president. But then today, I'm also seeing people trying to gravitate towards another man who is also being seen as a victim and probably wouldn't add much value to this country but divide it. So are we victims or we are creators of our own problems? That's number one. Number two, will we really go to the ballot with that clarity of mind that we've had enough and we need to change this country for the better by appointing and electing people who have the wherewithal and capacity to lead the country, not because of the noise they make, but because of the ability that they have? And thirdly, on the day when people are going to cast the ballot, on that day of August 10th, will people turn in numbers to do so? And do people understand the value of that vote? Because the challenge has been, it's so easy for people to be swayed. I give an example of Nyaribari Church. The man who is the current member of parliament, honestly, when you look at the things he's doing, and almost in a very derogatory manner, disrespecting his own constituents, and by the fact that and how he keeps giving them handouts and treating them with a lot of disrespect. Sometimes he's somewhere on a roof, and it's very wrong. But then, are we Kenyans probably entertaining and allowing that to be the case? So, for me, in conclusion, Kenyans have to understand the sanctity and the power of that vote, and it will make sense to be cardy, to go and be registered. But if you don't turn up on the day and vote correctly, because it's one thing to vote, but then it's another thing to vote and pick someone who is able to make a difference, then it will be a waste of time and resources and energy. I hope we can make that difference. It is probably the streets, it's the ballot, and it has to be a combination of anything to ensure that our country is changed for the better. Sometimes, even a revolution is what changes a country, probably not even the ballot. But Kenyans have to decide, and we must be very clear what we want to do, how to achieve it, and who do we give that responsibility.
All right, I hear you, Obeds. You seem to have your own perspective in terms of the current incumbents and what is the ailing issue in our country today. I would love to invite all of us to the talk. Kindly share your comments with us, and we'll also love to hear from you. We might not stay too long because we have slightly, I believe, a half an hour, two plus minus, in order for us to try and conclude the conversation. And we want to also apologize to our YouTube watchers. We lost some signal for a while, but we are now back on. You can feel free to continue watching live on X and YouTube. That said, I see we still have Dr. Morfo with us. And Lavani, I know there might be questions, so if you're not going to be in a hurry, because some of you are already getting very political, once you address mama mboga you want to leave na kuna maswali. Sisi sio mama mboga, sisi ni baba baba boda boda, so stay around so that we can talk to you. Dr. Mofo, good evening. How are you doing, sir?
Hi, Eli. How is your day?
I'm doing well. Great to have you here. And before I have these bad manners, you had concluded that you want to vie for a political office. Can you declare your interest before we proceed? Are you still there?
I've not withdrawn yet.
All right. Now we can have that talk. Continue, sir.
Thank you, Larry. Allow me to begin here. That yesterday, I believe, was the International World Earth Day, and it is important that I talk about it because there's a travesty that happened that highlights our our complicity as a society in normalizing social vices. That we created too much hype for a person who is said to have gone on a world record challenge for planting so many trees in 24 hours. But importantly is how it was conducted. It clearly showed you there was a circumvention of obvious standards, and therefore no integrity, no credibility whatsoever. When you dig trees, you dig holes, and you let somebody just come and push the earth back. I think it's not for me to protract much about it. I think the jury is out there, and unfortunately, it is a shame to us, and especially with the kind of hype that has come with it. Everybody in the system, the government. There's something that Diamond has mentioned, and it is clear that if you compare William Ruto and the past, is a comparison of light and darkness. It is as distinct as such. Today, Dr. Miguna called me a zombie because those comparisons that I think were on one of the dailies, and I told him for him to start comparing both, it is a distraction. That what we need to deal with is a monster of the day. It's not a time to start comparing right now. And the comparison actually tells you that both are not comparable in terms of performance, just like Diamond has highlighted. What I want to say is the streets or the ballot. If we had such a conversation with Malcolm X in 1964, when there was increased social segregation of the Black people in the United States, when he said it's either the ballot or the bullet, then for me, I think he would still continue with the same propensity of conversation and reasoning that indeed it is one or the other. And therefore, what is happening now is we are people whose time, whose patience as far as this regime is concerned, and its lack of respect for the rule of law, that it has gone ahead to exercise desecration of the Constitution, that we choose to pursue both of them at the same time, whichever works best. That we cannot sit here and say we wait until 2027 while there's increased level of economic exploitation by William Ruto. There is increased level of political oppression by his regime, and you tell us that we have the only constitutional way of choice and not the revolution. And therefore, it is the choice for us to choose between the two based on the urgency, based on the emergency, and more importantly, based on how much we are able to withstand. Now, there's one person I've always spoken about, and this person happens to be the 32nd president of the United States, Franklin Roosevelt. And there's a reason why I talk about Roosevelt. Roosevelt served the longest in the history of America, 4 terms, and therefore, having gone through 4 elections, unprecedented 4 elections, and winning with landslide, he commands the authority to lecture the world on what democracy is and how it should look like. But there's one thing he spoke about, the ballot, and he said that democracy cannot be defended through a ballot, not when fools make their decision, irrational as they could be, and end up giving us mediocre kind of leadership. And therefore, in his own wisdom, Roosevelt said that democracy will only be safeguarded when people who are eligible to make votes do it and do it wisely. And therefore concluded that the correct and the rightful safeguard for democracy anywhere in the world is education. We as the Gen Z, we as the people today, we are saying the following, that we are ready to walk into that ballot in 2027. We want to be confined within the dictates and the stipulation of the Constitution, but we identify ourselves as revolutionists. And that at any point, should we feel that our choice at the ballot in 2027 has not been respected, or there's no fair and free elections 2027, we cannot be restricted to taking other alternatives that are provided by the Constitution and or what we identify with as a revolutionist. Thank you, Eli.
Well, that is Dr. Morpho. He says we cannot be restricted. And I don't know. This is getting more interesting than I thought, because clearly Malcolm X getting into this, and Roosevelt also at the same time. Quite an interesting way to analyze what the current generation of young people and leaders need to do in order to restore the kind of leadership we so much desire to have. Remember, this is your week in brief, and as the word suggests, it's really a brief view on how the week has been. Today, we are really focusing on matters the ballot, elections, and leadership in Kenya. And that's why you will see us really discussing more on Kenyan matters. We are not ignoring the international stage. Welcome once again. Of course, it's 38 minutes after 9 p.m. And I'm corrected, we actually started the session at 8:30. That means we still have an hour to end the session. So we have time to have a talk with all of you. Allow me to bring in Academia, and then we quickly go back to Lavani before we have Kidiga and the rest who are joining in. Welcome, Academia.
Thanks, Eli and Obed. Streets or the ballot, what next, Gen Zs? All combined. One, streets will not stop. Ballot might stop, but streets will not stop. So streets is guaranteed by Constitution, but it is timeless. Ballot is also guaranteed by Constitution, but has got times. So streets can be any day, any time, while the ballot has definite dates. And therefore, the most urgent thing to do, or the most easiest thing to do, is to go to the street. That is guaranteed, so it will not end. The ballot might end depending on the situation. You can postpone the election, there can be violent. Naturally, elections cannot be held where the environment is not conducive, and therefore, and so on. So, but we have to do them. At this point, the most important thing is the ballot. And it is next year. If I say 2027, may make it a little bit longer. It is just next year. So you either align yourself with the united opposition or with the Ruto. There is no in between. They have demonstrated over the years that we will end up with two strong forces, the incumbent and the people who want to unseat the incumbent. And therefore, it is as clear as day that you are either opposing Ruto or supporting Ruto. There is no air between. You can just say there is in between on purpose, but reality does not accord that. And that is the thing. So those who want to remove Ruto should focus on how to remove Ruto. Genz, the only thing they can do is to register in large numbers and produce a candidate. And Genz, in this case, I mean people who want an alternative to the long established system. And if that is not going to happen, it means we are going to have the same order in different camps, and therefore we are likely to repeat the same things, replacing Obed to become a host and taking Eli to become a co-host and vice versa. So they are the same people working for the same companies, the same thing. So I would expect the Genz as a movement to produce a new alternative, which is going to be radical departure from the normal norms. To me, that is going to make a lot of sense. But next year, if we find ourselves in it is highly likely that we are going to remain with the same culprits, if I may use that word, or the same people, then the change we are yearning for in 2027, which is next year, is far-fetched. And therefore, if that is the case, just choose your side, wait for the vote. You vote, votes are counted, results are announced, whoever wins is sworn in, then we continue. And what I guarantee is that post that we are going back to the street in a strong force. Because that is my observation, my observation is that if we don't take a new paradigm shift from the same characters that have been there for the longest time, then our goods are cooked from the get-go. So we either decide to make this Genz thing as a movement to bring fresh blood in our politics. I doubt if we can achieve it next year, or to support the old order and then realign ourselves post 2027 and see 2032 what can happen. But if we don't do it within the very short time we have between now and next year, just less than 20 months, I don't think we are going to make any significant in terms of governance as expected by this generation. What we expect is not what we are going to get. The radical departure from the normal order, we are not going to achieve it in the event that we end up with the same characters at the ballot, eventually at the positions of leadership. So I'm not convinced that is likely to be the different, unless somebody who is not from this camp. These are just the same monkeys from different forests. One is now in power, another one is not in power. Then we remove one in power, bring another one who's not in power. Nothing has changed, only people. And that will render us to go back to state again. So as I land on this, Eli and Obed, now that we don't have a vision as a country, it has taken binaries where it is us versus them and nothing stands in between. Let's go with that because that is what we've chosen as a country, and work on it. And post 2027, if we come back again to our senses, then we can settle this cause outside this ballot, because I've said it numerous times that the way we are, the ballot cannot help us, will not change the structure of governance that we want. Configuration that we have in our height cannot be demonstrated through the ballot to work. But let's wait and see if that will work next year. For those who are going to be around, and for us, we hope that all of us are going to be around. I will say, I saw it in 2022. We are here today. I can authoritatively say that post 2027, we are still going to have the same problem. Because look, Obed, if this government has done tremendous mistakes, which means the next government is coming in to rectify what they have not done correct or what they have done wrong. Again, we are going into the books of lamentation. The same thing we were treated in 2022. And we were told when they went into parliament, when they got into government, the coffers, public coffers were empty. So we were treated to be patient because they were working on it. Now here we are. If the other side believes that the government is doing nothing and there's so many things wrong, so the first call they are going to give us or address is that things are so bad that you have to work on these things for Kenyans to be better. It will take another years. Again, taking us into the books of lamentation, and we'll be back on the street. So we better decide whether we want to change structure or to get good governance or to replace personalities and maintain the status quo. As is now, it is status quo and is not going to change 2027. Let's talk of 2032. Otherwise, it could be there. We could have signs of changing it 2027, but I don't see signs because time is running out. I don't see any sign of changing status quo. I don't see from how we are behaving, from by admission or our conduct. I don't see. If it is there, I'm here. I stand corrected if there is something tangible, rather than the characters you've been around, or rather than the normal behaviors that they have exhibited over the years. Thank you, Obed, for now. Yeah, Eli.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much. That is academia. And I love what you're saying in terms of what needs to be looked into. However, you are not very confident with a different alternative, because it looks like Eli and Obez will be exchanging seats, and that means we'll just have the same monkeys, different forests. But that has been how our politics is done. Probably I need some, some baptism right now to confirm that that is not the status of our Kenyan politics and world above, how it works across the globe. However, do we have a chance to change our narrative? Should be our question. And that's why we are asking the streets or the ballot, what next? I thought Lavani was here, but looks like we lost Lavani. So let me just cross to you, Kidiga, if you are there. We also lost him. Let's go to Weston. Good evening to you. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, Kidiga.
Kidiga?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you so much. So the question of this topic, I can see up for the streets or the ballot. What's next for the Gen Zs? So in our country, Kenya, Gen Z is becoming one of the most political aware and vocal generations. And rising cost of living, unemployment, governance concerns, and digital activism have pushed young people into deeper political conversations. So the big question heading towards the 2027 election is, should change come through protests? Protest is the streets, or through elections? Election is the ballot. So I have my only, I have my 4 approaches on this discussion. One, we can start with the case of the ballot. That means it means democratic participation. So those supporting the ballot argue that election are the legitimate system of change, and also the governments are formed and removed through voting, not confrontation. So the long-term stability matters here. It's peaceful political participation, protest lives, businesses, and national development. So, like, the influence comes from the numbers, yeah, in the voting. And if the young people, the Gen Zs, register, they vote and support accountable leaders, they can shape the outcomes. So policy change is institutional. Real reforms happens in parliament, and usually the county governments and policy and the frameworks. So my key idea in this aspect is if you want to change the system, you must enter the system. On my second approach, I can say about the case of the streets, the public pressure and protests. I know there are so many who argue the streets often mean peaceful civic demonstrations and activities. And usually their points, they include that accountability pressure, governments sometimes respond to faster to public pressure than to elections. So here, what I can say, like from this aspect, when the system ignored the people, people amplify their voice publicly. On my third approach is the risk of both approaches, the streets and the ballot. Streets, if we start with the streets, it can be, for me, it can be misunderstood or mismanaged. And also there is also risk of violence or destruction if not well organized. Maybe it will lead to backlash instead of reforms. Two, the ballot paper, it slows the changes process, you see? And also there is high risk of voter apathy among youth and also influence of money and political structures. What's next for Gen Z? In, in the coming year, 2027 reality. The most realistic direction is not choosing one side completely, but combining. So how can we combine these? We can combine it by civic engagement together with the voting power, you see? So here, the plan is registering to vote early. Is it the question? Yeah. Understanding manifestos and policies and holding the leaders accountable after the elections. See? And also in that combining, we can have the digital activism using the social media for awareness and accountability. I really appreciate the last time the finance bill, how the youth, the millennials and the Gen Zs, they were actively on social media as the experts on how we can, you see. So my conclusion here, the future of Gen Z in our country, Kenya, and beyond is not streets or ballot, but by informed voting and responsible civic voice together with the consistent accountability. Real change happens when young people are not emotionally engaged, but also strategically involved in the democratic process. So thank you guys for your time.
Kidiga, very interesting. You talk about when real change happens, and you also tell us we need to rethink about the emotional connection with all this. And I'm happy that Lavani is back. I see your hands, Obed. Just allow me to quickly flip back to Lavani before I can invite you to take us to the next speaker. Lavani, I hope you've listened to most of these speakers, and there are things they are saying. What is it for you that needs to be relooked into? Do we need to recalibrate this system so that it's not just about the emotional entanglement we have, but also the strategic perspective of how we will approach politics moving forward? Lavani? Lavani?
Um, uh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can proceed.
Uh, All right. I think if I get you right, you're trying to find out in terms of the whole game, ball game, like having the eyes on the wholesome game, especially when it comes um, to strategic approach in terms of how we can then um, win this whole contest that we are in as a country. From where I stand and I look at it, I know politics is very much emotional because it touches on various aspects of our lives. And if you ask majority of the people why they're coming out to vote out this government, a lot of it will come from statements like the death of our brothers and sisters who have been killed by this regime, and the pain and the suffering that our people are going. So they are feeling this pain at heart wherever they are. And in the look of things, the way it stands is that I know there's always a both approach in it. Like you cannot completely detach the emotional aspect because that is what will push a lot of people to come out to seek change. But at the same time, we need people who sees this for what it is and deploy strategic approaches in terms of, and that strategic approaches, and I've said is mostly institutionalized. You look at where we want to go, how we can reach there, what form of organization or planning can get us where we want to, how will you get there? And you put in spaces in terms of funding and you put in everything in terms of funding and everything else that need to be put in place to ensure that you actually achieve your objective. And if you look at where we stand, for example, myself speaking on my own behalf, is that we have already engaged into the political system of the country. And we know to take power, you need to come together. The most proven way of taking political power is through formation of political parties. And it is through these political parties that then you convince the citizens to elect you to implement the changes that you need. And in the clarity of things, we know that majority of the legacy political parties are captured by the same people that you're trying to get out of power. So we need an established new formation of a party that adheres to the new demands and the system that you want to create. And that is why the PM party comes in. And also, we understand that youthfulness and being bold and coming out as young people to come and protest is something good. And also, youth, they say that the young men, we run fast, but the old people know the way. So there must be a mix of people with experience who act as advisors to what we are doing, and then we walk into that same aspect, and then we include them. It becomes an inclusive model so that we don't completely kick out, because there are people who are in this system that have been trying to fight this system for quite some time. And by cooperating with them and working with them, there are things that we can learn from them that will help us win the battle eventually. So I totally agree that in politics, it's all about strategy, in societal change. And when it comes to systems, how they have been designed, you need people who have expertise, who understand how to tackle this system. And most of the time, it requires us going into the system and not totally overrunning the system. Overrunning the system, of course, people will propose things like a revolutionary way, where you simply, say we are done, and you get rid of everything else, bring the system down, and you put in a new system. But quite more often, that results to a lot of damage, and sometimes clearly after the outcome of the revolution, people do not even have, it is always risky where the dice will be cast. It may even, people with, for example, you may have more corrupt individuals taking advantage of that because they were more placed to, like, for example, let's say, for example, the military comes in, as many people were proposing that the military might come in and it might even suspend the constitution. And there was some of the arguments, intellectual arguments that we put in place. But at the same time, as you can see, Gen Zs have become more strategic. And when you see, even when you're pushing for voter registration, I'm not just talking about Gen Z per age, I mean Gen Zote when I say Gen Z, because there's just a clarion call to those who came out on the streets to protest in 2024 and are still right now trying to push for change. We have become more strategic in our approach, and you can see that we are pushing in as much as there's that outlet of emotions, but you're still pushing through the structures and the system. We are asking young people kwamba kupiga kelele ni panganga tu, bila kura there is no way you're going to make a difference. So you see the Tuko Card initiative, a very good initiative. Number two, you're seeing us joining political parties, and I mean different parties that are in place. And you can see we are not just going there to become youth league wingers. We are going there to take serious position from the top to the bottom, so that these changes that we are claiming to want in our country, if we are able to implement them through the political parties that we are in, then we are sure that then we are actually the course and we are sticking to the values done for. And then it also enables us, when you join these political parties, a space to now lobby for people to support you in a structured way. You can now, as a political party, like you saw the PM party the other day, calling a press conference and speaking about the issue of fuel. So it becomes a platform for us to join. There are clear procedures, there are clear ways, and everybody's adhering to that. Because you look at our country where we are, there is the problem of neo-colonialism, but also there's a problem of fidelity to the law. Like, we are not keen to follow and implement our laws to the fullest. Because you look at how the constitution is structured and how we anticipate our systems to be functioning, the executive being checked by the legislature, and the judiciary stepping in to stop to as an adjudicator when it comes to issues of argument in terms of law and interpretation.
Yeah.
And so that was supposed to be the separation of power that all of us were seeking, and the constitution is instituted in that way. But you see today, like, for example, the president goes the other day, makes a roadside declaration that you're going to cut fuel VAT to 8%, and you know that the laws are very clear that if there is any reduction of fuel, VAT, it cannot exceed 25%. And clearly this was more than 25%. But in order to regularize that, he runs to parliament to ratify the same thing. And you can see clearly that the president has captured the legislature. And to some extent, even the judiciary is not as independent as our laws anticipate or are intended for them to become. But then it is the duty of us as citizens to now look into the deficiencies, what is not working, and that is where now strategy comes in, strategic thinking and planning and absorbing all the structural power things. Because truth be told, being emotional cannot last. And you can see even the Mandamano vibe, when it was on, everybody was well and feeling this the vibe. But when the exhaustion came in, people are like, what do we do next? Because there was no clear plan and strategy in terms of, this is what we want, we will push for this, and if this happens, this is how we will do it, and if this does not happen, this is how we will respond. So you saw that became part of the problem. If some people were to analyze how the Gen Z demonstration happened, you can clearly see that there was lack of strategic thinking, because it was majorly based on how we feel. Waseba na nyinyi hamjakasirika, nyinyi hamko. So there was a little bit of that. And even in terms of even emotional, arousing the emotion of people is also a strategic gamble, a strategic game, because you go to input that in someone, a word or a statement that will infuriate that person to feel it is okay to come out and protest. So I totally agree that organized system will beat even the most brilliant talent in the face. So as Gen Zs and as millennials and all the other generations that are pro-change, that want to see progressive Kenya that is dignified and people are living, having equal opportunities and living through a system that is fair and equal to all, we need now to sit down and interrogate these processes through the political process. And also, this is not exclusively a political game. There's a civically involve the civic society in what we are doing, the NGOs, and we have seen them coming out, supporting the cause. They are calling out extrajudicial killing. Someone like Hussein Khalid, you have seen Amnesty International, and now that can only be done if we are now thinking strategically. And you're saying these guys also can help us. Who are our allies? How do we involve them? And it also comes to the aspect of also how do we plan? When do we end? When do we, it is learning and relearning and relooking at what has not functioned and incorporating it. So I totally agree that at this particular point, we need to be more strategic. But also, we cannot tell people that just forget about your emotion and think strategically. A human being is an emotional being, and you cannot separate emotions from the person. So what we need to do is to have a strategy that will encompass that those emotions and channel them towards a particular goal that will make this country a better country. So that when Gen Zs are yelling, that your yelling is actually bringing change. When you are fighting, your fighting is bringing something. It is part and parcel of the plan that we had. So I agree with that. Unless Eli, I hope I have addressed your issue.
Court FM. Let the music play.
Totally.
So Lavani, thank you very much, and quite extensive, and given a bit of leverage to be able to canvass the point. And it's home. There's a lot that has to be done, and that said, it's a responsibility upon the people who have what is critical to make that choice and determination that is informed. Eli, your hand is up. I don't know what your...
Yeah, I just wanted to. I know time is really moving, and we're doing our best to ensure that we have all of you contribute. Those of you who already have the mics, a majority already spoken. But I just wanted to take some, notes with what Lavani mentioned, especially on the 25% in terms of fuel VAT. And I think the law there stipulates that when such measurements have to be taken by government, then anything that exceeds 25% in reduction of VAT will require to go through Parliament. So yes, the executive had made that decision. However, in order to go through the legal and make it not anti the constitution requirements, that is why it went to Parliament. So it's not that they cannot exceed 25%, but they, in the event of that, should go through Parliament. I think that is now clearer, Lavani, but the point is home.
Absolutely, Eli, because what I was trying to tell you is not about the legal aspect of it, but I was trying to tell you how Parliament is captured. And if I'm to elaborate that point, we saw a situation whereby in 2024, MPs went and sat down and passed the finance bill, and they were voting yes. And then the next day, when the protests were too hard on the government, when they went to State House and the president said, now we are withdrawing the bill, they were the people who were standing up to clap. And you would just be thinking, how are these people so clownish that this bill came to you the other day and you did pass it and said it is good, and the next day you're called to stated and told this bill is bad, you're going to withdraw it, and then you clap and say yes, we agree with the president. So you can see that even right now, when you look at people who are proponent of two-term, they come to us and they tell us in our counties, like, ukiwa kaunti yetu haitakuwa kwa serikali hatutapata maendeleo. Ati si unaona wale wenye wako kwa broad based vile maendeleo inafanyika. And juzi kulikuwa na there's this nominated senator in parliament, is a proponent of UDA, and she put it bluntly that, since this broad-based arrangement happened, development has gone to Luo Nyanza. And you wonder, if we have such kind of thinking in our members of parliament, who clearly the constitution puts the responsibility of budgeting, budget allocations and oversight, how would you go to beg the president to bring development to your people? Does it mean that the people who do not vote for the president should not do not deserve development in their areas? Does it mean that we as a people will become slaves to the system so that the system can serve us? That is not what our constitution envisages, and that is not the true position in law. That means only that our people who are in parliament, the people who we have entrusted the responsibility of oversight and legislating in this country, have failed us. They do not understand the power that they do have. In short, they have been captured. And some of it could be because of monetary benefits that they are getting directly from State House to run their campaigns. Some of it could be because of the scandals that the state has about them. So you'll be threatened and be told, if you vote against this bill, this and this is going to happen. So in essence, what we're trying to say is that in order to have a well-functioning system, our constitution envisages a system whereby parliament is independent from the executive. And in cases like in our case in this country, where the executive and the legislature are going to bed and people are not just, questioning, they're no longer oversighting, they are simply passing laws without consideration of the people. In our structure as a government, they knew that the president can exceed
Maybe
their power.
Lavani, I just give you slightly 30 minutes, seconds. I beg your pardon. There are a lot of
Okay, so
yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's just a moment that I'm so passionate about these things. But the thing is, the people, the legislature is the representation of the people. They should be talking to the people. They should be the one oversighting for the people. But they have failed on that role, and that is what I'm saying. Parliament is captured, and we need to. That is the first casualty that we must deal with when it comes to 2027. Any strategy without capturing the independence of Parliament will still lead us to the same outcome that we have.
Asante sana, that is Lavani Miller, and appreciated. I reached out to Lavani to ask him to come and speak to us, especially since he's a member of the PM party, which is the newest political party in the country, and it was really an honor to have you here, sir. In case there are other questions that you would like to directly ask Lavani, feel free to reach out to Lavani. His handle is at Lavani Miller. That said, ladies and gentlemen, Obed, I was perusing through my very important data in terms of how we function here. And I noticed leo siko kwa keja na sitoki hapa, but mtu mmoja alikuja hapa na alikataa kuongea. Mwambie on Thursdays we have TBT sessions and we want to speak to people like him. Nonini, great to see you here. Steve, among others, Budala and Mjadala, long time no see. Karibuni sana to the conversation. Over to you, Obeds, as you bring in Weston.
Well, thanks a lot. I think Bundi was before Western, and I'd allow Bundi to speak, but I have probably got some specific questions because I know Western is an intellectual. I would like to have probably much as he'd like to give his opinion to the conversation. Let's probably need to ask a few questions specifically, hoping that he can be. I'm sure he can be able to address them. And so let me allow Bundi to speak, and then we get to hear from Weston.
Okay, thank you, Obed, for the opportunity. I just want to start by agreeing with what most of the speakers have said earlier before me, that this is a very important discussion. And in its importance, there are some aspects that we need to learn. And first of all, I just want to deal with the framing of the question itself. What next Gen Zs? In my own observation, I don't think this is only about Gen Z thing. This is about a Kenyan thing. It's about a national thing. This is something which most of Kenyans are really identifying with. Because if indeed we want to have a change, a change must be identified with majority of the people. And that is why you're saying that most of the things that the government is doing the wrong way, people are basically being paid. If it's about schools which are not functioning, people are being failed. You'll not find, average Gen Zs complaining about that. If it's hospitals which are basically not working, SHA is not working, it's just a crisis. People, there are those people who are feeling this heat more than even the Gen Z themselves. And that is why I'm saying that this should be about Kenyan thing. It's all about, all citizens who are bearing the brunt of William Ruto's mismanagement. And I really want to say something is this. I am one person who strongly believes in that people should come together. People should come and exercise themselves. I think Article 38 speaks very clearly. I mean, Article 37 speaks very clearly about how you can come out to express yourself. But again, I tend to weigh these things according to the deliverables. Today, we are going to say that yes, there were demonstrations. What are we getting from these demonstrations? If indeed we are going to demonstrate each and every time, but we are not getting something of value out of these demonstrations, it means that this is not the most, this is not the most consequential route of changing government, because most of us and majority of Kenyans are having the view that this is a government which has basically failed to deliver all services, social services, education services, all public policies which are geared at improving the quality of life have been failed by the government. So if indeed you're going to use a route which basically after each and every day, it is not bearing any results, it means that you need to change tact. And that is why I believe that if indeed, because there were demonstrations on Wednesday, and I think people had said this is about opposition. The demonstrations were not about opposition. You see, there's this mislabeling and mislabeling of all these things. It was about Kenyans, because at the end of the day, it is not only the people in the opposition who are feeling the punch of increase in the fuel prices. All Kenyans are feeling this heat of William Ruto's administration, and that is why I believe that if indeed, and we are seeing by and large that the demonstrations didn't go well as expected. They were, to some end expected to bring a lot of people, but they never attracted a lot of people because there are a lot of things which happened there. The next thing that we must be focusing on as Kenyans is registering as voters, because in 2027, there will be an election. That is something that we all know. And in that election, each and every person will be having a will to make his own decision on what he wants for this country. So if indeed we've seen other routes have failed us, and basically they failed us, we need to ensure that this the option that we're having is basic, we mobilize around it. Make sure that all Kenyans from all walks of life are registering as voters. Make sure that politically aware of what is happening in this country, and let them understand the reason of voting, because there are those Kenyans who are just taking, votes, as just a ceremony. You go and vote, you leave, and then you say after 5 years they'll come again. No, people must basically understand how important it is to vote and to participate in these processes. There are those guys who would come and pubo and say that there is no change which can be engineered by voting. I want to say that in as much as we would not achieve that institutional remodeling, which some of us are desiring in 2027, at least by participating in this process, it will be making some progressive changes within our governance structure. Because we have basically identified that among the very many issues that we are suffering as a country is tragedy in our leadership. It is the same leadership that we've normalized a lot of mediocrity in our leaders, such that some appointments are being made and you're like, oh my goodness, how did we reach here as a country? So I think going forward as a nation, we must go back to the original call. What basically is failing as a nation? In the root cause of the problem, that is what we need to address going forward. Because each and every government has been coming up with its own bad hit solutions, but at the end of the day, the problems which have been existential bans in this country have not been addressed for that too long. So I believe that in 2027, Kenyans are having a very fortunate moment of changing the government. We are seeing that William Ruto is just a complete encapsulation of every wrong thing that is happening in this country. If it is corruption, actually, we had from his own policy, his own expert, that is David, he's saying that they found the government to be wasteful, and they are committed to leave the government to be wasteful and corrupt as they found it. That is number one. It shows that the government is not even committed to ensuring that they reduce the level of corruption that is happening in the same government. And that is why yesterday you saw that the media was saying, you saw the report that President William Ruto has spent 90 billion in 3 years and 9 months. 90 billion. The money that was spent, for the whole 10 years of William Ruto, that is a government that is not committed. Because we have seen a lot of wastage, flagrant wastage by the government. That is why people are going to State House and collecting 5,000 Kenyan shillings each and every day. These are things that should not be normalized in a working and functioning country. Number two, when it comes to priorities of President William Ruto, because some people are saying that we are unfair to William Ruto, but if indeed we want to judge him fairly based on what he's doing, you will find nothing good from what he's doing. Everything that he's doing is full of scandals. Everything is full of scandals. Today we are speaking about SHA is not working. Remember, we bought a system that is under 4 billion, but still Kenyans are complaining, they're lamenting. healthcare, education. Most of these priority areas which any government would have prioritized are not working. That is why I believe that if indeed, because we've realized that these are things that the government promised and it has failed to deliver them, we must make sure that we are doing something in 2027. And there's another thing that there is another thing that Ruto was saying in 2022, because we are judging Ruto basically from a position of what he said and what he promised. It is not what we did or rather what other people did. That is my point, that we must deal with him based on what he said. And in 2022, Ruto was on top of his vehicles as basically that is his norm, saying that his government will not tolerate police brutality, people will not be killed. But we are seeing people are being killed each and every day. These are things that shouldn't be happening in a normal country. These are bare minimums that shouldn't be happening in a country that is working. And that is why I'm believing that we must make sure that we engineer a change, a political change. In as much as we will not achieve that institutional remodeling, institutional change, because that is what we need to address. That is the root cause of the problems that we're having as a country. There is institutional malaise. And if we are going to address that going forward, at least we shall see this country going forward. And then I want to come to the issue of the opposition. We as a country are being fixed in a corner that it's either Ruto or somebody else. It's either Ruto or you're either supporting William Ruto or you're either in this camp of united opposition. This is again tragedy in our leadership as a nation, because we have very constrained choices to choose from. That is the problem that we're having. Very constrained choices that we have to choose from. When we see other peoples like Maragas of this world, they are basically, they don't carry that clout. Now, in the united opposition, people are saying that these people do not represent change. And actually, if they are in an honest analysis, they don't represent that much change that we need as a country. But Ruto is actually not even the change that this country needs. He has failed completely. So this is about embracing them. I believe in an embrace of them, embrace of their values for the sake of this country. We cannot afford the next 5 years of William Ruto. We have seen a lot from his government. We've seen a government that is, it doesn't identify with the common sufferings of people. We've seen a government that, trashes constitution and sees it as an obstacle of consolidating power. We are seeing a government that doesn't take responsibility for anything that is happening. Ruto must say somebody has done it. He has never taken any personal responsibility of the issues that are happening in his own government. And that is a tragedy itself, because as a president, you must realize that everything that happens in this government, you are accountable to the people who elected you. But Ruto doesn't accept that. So earlier, even as we discussed on what is going to happen before now in 2027, I can tell you for a fact that Kenyans are understanding and Kenyans are becoming politically conscious. They are aware of the problems that they're experiencing. They are aware that the government has failed, and what they need to do is just make sure that in 2027, we are voting for a better person. I am one person who is strongly believe and strongly support of a ballot revolution. Most of the people would come and support these revolutionary ideas of going to the streets, removing this government from the streets. I think 2024 we did that. It did some results, but it didn't bring that we expected. But Ballot is here with us. Please let us make a choice that is going to change this country, because a lot of issues are happening in our leadership, from national government to county governments, sleaze, theft, all these things are happening there. So it invites us as a country as Kenyans who are concerned to ensure that we are voting for the people who are really identified with something. We've been normalizing this, we've normalizing this mediocrity in our leadership. We've normalized people who are chickening out from accountability. We've normalized people who don't care about the welfare of the people. These are things that shouldn't be happening in a functioning government. And so for that reason, as I learned, Obet, is that we must make sure that in 2027, we leave no stone unturned. Every place that you are as a person, because I believe most of us who are here have some influence, please talk to 2 or 3 people. Make them understand what is happening in this country. Make them understand that they can change the country by participating in these processes of voting. Make them understand the value of going out in these spaces and speaking about what the government is doing. Make them understand the value of keeping these conversations alive, because it is by keeping these conversations alive that we are going to change this country. And the last part is this. I believe also that change will not come from without. Change will come from within. Hungary did its election on last week. I think it was on Sunday. They elected a person who was part of the system, but he represented some change. And that is why, in my observation, that I'm embracing united opposition. These are the people who've been part of the system for that, for sure. But again, as a nation, there reaches a moment whereby we need to take a time and pause for reflection and see at least what we want, because we've seen Ruto in its true elements.
Yeah.
There is nothing that Ruto, there's nothing that we don't know about Ruto. Basically, we know him through and through.
Yeah.
So as we get to 2027 as Kenyans, let us make sure that we are embracing the people who at least would, in one way or the other, sympathize with William Ruto's, methods of operation, make sure that they are making this country to be habitable, and make sure that they are creating opportunities for people, because the young people out here are suffering. And that is why you think that there are a lot of goons around. People are suffering out here. It is not because of their choice. It's not because of their choice, Obens. Yes. Thank you. It's not because of their choice. It's not because of their choice. It's because of lack of opportunities. And for that to change that thing, at least let us love this country and vote for a government that would be patriotic in all standards. I learned. Thank you, Obets.
Thank you very much, Bundi. Given you that leverage, again, today is an open mic, and we're allowing people to air their views without really directing the conversation in that sense, but probably to stay within the cause. Sometimes you need to allow a few questions here and there. Weston, nice to see you, and thank you very much. It's been a while we have had you in the space, and because I've listened to you and I know your way of thinking, and especially the approach that you have, which in my view is quite correct. I just specifically would like to ask this, not because of correlation, but in the sense that Kenya, we know politics is more nuanced. There's more to politics than just anger and using maybe a ballot revolution to make a difference. There's much more when it comes to power. And an example is the current president. When he was supposedly in the opposition while in government, there are so many things he promised to do, but the actual situation when he gets into power probably looks a bit different. And I feel, and this is an observation, that the young people probably also feel it is possible for them to make a difference. But there's an element of statecraft. There's how to manage power. There's also how to develop and manage a lot of resources and issues, and ensuring that there's competence across board. That said, does it always have to be opposition to government, or people need to find a conciliatory tone and find what is not working, and by coming together, resolve that problem without necessarily antagonism? Which is the best way, especially knowing what ails Kenya, the kind of politics we do? And I think Bundi has spoken to the element of our binary nature of politics, that it's either the ugly or the bad and no other option in between. How do we resolve this conundrum, looking at what other jurisdictions are doing that is good, and looking at it from the Kenyan aspect? How do we localize what is good, understanding our circumstances, and make our country better, and especially headed into elections with the assumption that maybe majority don't understand, but can be guided to know why and how important it is to be able to participate in the civic engagement of voting? I think I've said a lot, and I hope you've picked it. But welcome to the conversation, as also you give your own views of the conversation. I'll give you some time.
Obet, thank you. An Irishman by the name Samuel Beckett wrote a play called Waiting for Godot. It's what they call part of the theater of the absurd. Theater of the absurd. In this play, there are two people who are standing somewhere, and they're engaged in some twaddle, some nonsensical conversation. Has no beginning, has no body, has no ending. They don't know who they are waiting for, but they believe they're waiting for someone, who's going to pass by where they are. someone consequential. Why this person should use that route, they don't know. Why they're waiting for this person, they don't know. They have no answers to these questions. But they engage in some banter nonetheless, to fill up the void. Theater of the absurd. Well, you pick them because their lives are meaningless, completely meaningless. It would be sorry for anybody to find themselves in such a situation. But most people in post-colonial Africa, their lives are not any different from the lives of these two characters in this play. I'm saying that 2027 elections will not be radical. They will not be revolutionary. Those words are misnomers. They're being misapplied. They're being misapplied. That's a brutal reality. These are status quo elections in which Kenyans, once again, for the umpteenth time, will be forced to choose between options that don't exist. No options, actually. But there's this notion that there are options, just like previous elections. No options. Because if you want to know why I'm saying this, people opposed to William Ruto say, we will vote for someone better, but that person is not mentioned, like waiting for Godot. This person is not mentioned. So the inference that this person will be born between now and 2027 August, this person does not exist as we speak now. That's why there's no naming of this person who will stand against the incumbent and bring about transformation. They never named that person. But there's this hope that there's some better candidate come 2027 elections waiting for Godot. You get? Then what is that? Is that how a revolution unfolds? Is that how you bring about transformation, lasting change? Obets, I want to hear about your earth-shaking proposals about our economy. These are basic questions about our economy. These things about joblessness, these things about violence, these are things that are all tied up to the economy, the architecture of our economy. Now, if this president is struggling to get it right, where are your counter propositions, your counter proposals, very radical proposals that will make people in DC shake and listen? There's a candidate in Kenya. Proposal that will make people in London sit up and listen. There's a candidate in Kenya who is running for president. Where are those proposals? Where are they? No, let him get out. We'll figure out what to do. That's conmanship, I can tell you. Anybody who is talking like that, Obets, the key thing now is to get rid of this president. Thereafter, we'll figure out. That's a con man. That's conmanship. They don't want to nail their colors on the mast because they will be held to account. They will be held to account. This is what you promised. Is that what you're doing? No. They are wishy-washy. Wishy-washy. Give it to this president. At least he spelled things out in the manifesto. And he's gone ahead to implement some of them against great opposition. Why? Because we're used to politicians promising us heaven. But when they get into power, they have got free rein to do as they wish. We don't hold them to account. They're free to do as they wish. We don't ask them, what did you promise to do once you get into power? They are free. This president, in fact, he reminds us that we never pay attention to manifestos. We never pay attention to manifestos. We don't. We don't. Because they're formalities. You can write very elaborate things in a manifesto, what you're going to do about education, about healthcare, about infrastructure, about agriculture. But once you're in power, Well, status quo. You have arrived, you're home and dry. Business as usual.
But Western, and I'm not interrupting you, just to ask, isn't it probably what the young Kenyans are trying to do from
This is
2024?
not about young people, Obets. That discussion is very
No, I'm just
reductionist.
asking. There's a
It's
reason why
about
I'm asking
Kenyan.
that. Exactly. But there's a reason
It's
why I'm
about
asking
Kenyan.
that, because you say it is about what was promised, and the questions are you delivering or not you promised?
So he didn't promise anything about housing.
No,
He didn't
that's
make any promises about infrastructure. He did not.
what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, and I'm asking a question, I'm actually not even rubbishing what you're saying. What I'm just trying to ask is, maybe what the young people and the Kenyans are asking today
I'm
is this
saying,
exactly what you
Obed,
wanted?
let me proceed. I'm saying it's not about what he promised. It is he promised this. He has not done it. This that he's doing, he didn't promise. Then we're having a discussion. It's not this generic conversation we like. Go to his manifesto and pick out things. This is what you promised. You have not delivered on this. This that you're doing is not captured in your manifesto. Where did you get this? Then we're having a conversation. It's not like he's not delivering the things he promised. No, that is a generic wishy-washy conversation. These things were written. They were captured in writing. So it's not he said, somebody else said. No. So I'm saying let's have a structured conversation. It's not about generics and generalities. Pick his manifesto, UDA manifesto. Buy a tooth comb, go through it. Why are you not focusing on this thing about agriculture? Why are you not focusing on healthcare? What did you promise vis-a-vis healthcare? What did you promise vis-a-vis education? What did you promise vis-a-vis access to competitive credit for small and medium enterprises? What did you promise? Then we're talking. It can't be that he's not delivering. And about young people, this is about Kenya. It's about Kenya. Don't disaggregate the people of Kenya because we all inhabit the same country. If the country is not working, elderly people will pay the price. Middle-aged people will pay the price. Children will pay the price. They will not make it to their 5th birthday. Expectant women will pay the price during childbirth. School-going children will pay the price. Don't disaggregate. Just these are people of Kenya, regardless of age. Then we're having a conversation. There's no special demographic in Kenya. That conversation about young people, youth, elderly people, it's reductionist. Don't disaggregate.
Western, granted, what I was trying to allude to is the fact that the people who have risen to demand and ask a lot of questions from government are what they have pretended at Gen Zs. And so it's not because I'm disaggregating Kenyans, but just being specific to the question that then if that be so, isn't it probably also a reflection of the fact that maybe we Kenyans don't interrogate or read anything, we just do it for the sake of it and just vote and don't have the understanding of what policy or suggestion anybody is bringing across the board?
Well, I will tell you things from myself. I have been perturbed by the state of our infrastructure in Kenya. I've been perturbed. Why roads would be what they are in Kenya, that has disturbed me for the longest time. When I walk around Kenya, I see a lot of sprucing up of roads. That road from Nairobi to Western Kenya, I've been perturbed why a road should be so narrow like this. Since my childhood, why would a road be so narrow like this? I've been perturbed. I'm seeing the road is being modernized from me, what I'm seeing. I've been perturbed why an airport should look like this. Why would an airport look like that in that airport in Nairobi? It has disturbed me. He is also concerned why an airport should look like that. When was that airport built? When was it? I asked myself a question, why SGR should be built from Mombasa to I don't know, Naivasha, Uhuru Kenyatta's farm? Did it disturb me? He has come into power, he's stretching that line to Malaba initially as it was planned. This is me talking, seeing what he is doing. Me, myself, this is what I'm seeing. So if you don't see what he's doing, it's fine. That's okay. But it's completely wrong to make a generalization that this president has not done anything. All that he's doing is looting. It doesn't stand scrutiny. That's what I'm saying. It does not stand scrutiny. You can have an issue with the way he's doing things, which is okay. He's a politician. But to just broad brush say that he's done nothing, no, it's not even serious to entertain that kind of a conversation. It's not serious. It's not serious. That's the point I'm making. So I'm saying this. It's not here for me to enumerate what he has done, but I'm saying the things myself I was concerned about long before he became president. And once he became president, I can see that he has prioritized those things, issues. Why would I disown the very, very things I was concerned about long before he became president? Well, why would I disown and say, no, he's not doing anything? Then I hear development has gone to Nyanza. No, development has not gone to Nyanza. It has not. Development has not gone to Northeastern, where he was the other day, or coastal region. He's rolling out what is called equity. Equity. The people in those areas are not taking what belongs to somebody else. They're getting what is due to them as bona fide citizens of the Republic of Kenya. It's not, if you hear somebody telling you under this president, some areas are favored, he's engaged in politics of conmanship. Conmanship. He is. Because studies are there to prove these things. Those areas that are saying development is going to those areas, there are studies to show that those areas were marginalized previously.
So Western, one more question, just because I'd asked the question, but felt like you haven't addressed it. Then is it more to avoid the element of opposition and probably look for a way to have a sense of conciliation, look at what is not working and make sure that it works, so that
no, you're
it
not
doesn't
going
look
to
like
avoid that. You won't. You will not avoid, because this is a divided society. It is divided. Even things that in other societies would unite people, they become cleavage issues in Kenya. That's what sets Kenya aside from many societies. Even things that members of a given society would unite behind, irrespective of the ethnic, religious, regional, class differences, those issues remain cleavage issues, which means divisive issues in Kenya. So you are not going to say we abandon opposition or what have you. Let me ask you, these people you call opposition, wouldn't you be concerned if people are challenging the incumbent for president and when they wake up, they just rotate within the same area of the country? Their politics is restricted to the same area of the country. Wouldn't that bother you? Wouldn't it bother you? The so-called opposition, when you wake up, you rotate around Ukambani, Kitui, Machakos, parts of Nairobi where you think you've got a support base. Then you go to Kikuyu land, Nyeri there, Murang'a, Kiambu, and then you go to sleep. The following week, you wake up, you rotate around. Doesn't that bother you? Doesn't that bother you? And this, whether you like it or not, these are William Ruto's most, in quotes, formidable challengers. There are no other challengers to the president. These are Ruto's challengers. These people here who are rotating within the same area, doesn't it bother you? How come I don't see these people in Migori or in Busia or in Kwale or Loitoktok? Those parts are not part of Kenya or Turkana. So who is going to vote for them? Let me ask you. No, this president may be very disgraceful, for lack of a better word. He's not covered himself in glory. So who is going to vote for his opponents? Who have boxed themselves in one part of the country? Who is going to vote for them? Who? Answer me that question, who will? And then young people joining political parties. Julius Malema was part of the ANC. His politics was too radical. They expelled him. He was expelled. But who expelled him? The current president of South Africa. He's the one who expelled him. They subjected him to disciplinary and expelled him from the ANC party. Then he went and formed his own political party. I'm saying you can't join existing political parties and hope to make change from within. You can't. I can put it to you for free. You cannot. You can only form your own party, your own philosophy, policies that are radically different from the existing ones, and then canvas for support around that. You can't join DCP and lie to yourself that you're going to engineer change within DCP. That is like waiting for Godot, that play of the absurd that I talked about. You can't say you'll join UDA and upstage the president, or you're going to join ODM and upstage. People have been there since ODM was formed. You can't. You're lying to yourself. You're lying to yourself. You'll be co-opted. That's the point I'm making, Obets, that but power doesn't entertain naivety, Obets. It does not. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It does not entertain naivety. It does not. It's very vicious. It's very vicious to go approach power from a very sentimental, or this government killed people. States kill people, for those who don't know. It is in their nature to kill. If states don't kill, that's news. That's news. If states don't kill, that's news. It's in their nature to kill. That's the point I'm making. What is it that the Israelis are doing in Gaza? What have they done? Before our very, very eyes. What are they doing? What are they doing in Iran? Before Lebanon. What are they doing? In Ukraine. What is happening there? Are we seeing what's happening? Has the world come to a standstill? We just proceed with our lives. Tomorrow we wake up next year, those same things will happen. What do you mean by what? It's not Ruto is killing people, it's the state. It is the state. Inherently, it's violent. It's inherently violent. So I'm saying we engage in power antics, but we don't understand how power operates. That to me, it's concerning, Obet. It's completely concerning. It's concerning. Let me see you march to State House in Abuja, or to Capitol Hill in DC or wherever, and let's see you walk back home with your life. Let's see how that works out.
I think,
Let's see how
Weston, that's a
works
great
out.
point to land. I'm afraid we're running out of time. Really, we need to. great perspective, Weston. But because of the constraint of time and all the speakers that are waiting.
So I'm saying this.
Yes.
Let me finish.
Kindly, please, under a minute.
There will be negotiation. Kenya, divided as it is, it has no environment for liberal democracy. Forget about that. It doesn't. It does not have the requisite ecosystem for competitive multi-party politics. What can only serve Kenya is the things Raila Odinga is doing. Negotiation, 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 give and take, give and take. That is it. But for you to wake up and say, no, Kenyans have overcome their differences ethnically, regionally, economically, you are lying to yourself, because you can see the kind of vitriol, the appointment of people like Calvin's Okoth. That's part of the marginalized people. You want a professor to be appointed to those positions and then you like it. But what change are you looking for? If you are not fighting for the marginalized people, or if the marginalized people don't fight for themselves, and when they get in those positions, you have a problem with them. Well, what problem do you have? You have a problem because they don't fit your characterization, definition of who the proper modern person looks like. He's got a PhD, he's got a master's, speaks English. You are not a revolutionary when you think like that. You are reactionary, you are status quo, you are a classist, you are elitist. And therefore, you cannot transform Kenya. You just change the decks, the chairs on the deck. That's what it is. And that's why you cannot mention your candidate come 2027. Like this characters in Waiting for Godot, you are in some meaningless banter, living some empty life. I yield.
Western. That was Western. Quite a class there, I must say. If you have strong opinions, you might not really want to listen to what Western is saying, but he's speaking to something. The only part is, I was thinking, Western, you said that this rail has to reach somewhere in Western Kenya, or does it proceed somewhere else? Just to be sure.
I said SGR. Some of us have studied SGR
Yes.
before now
Yes.
as part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. This project was meant to reach Eastern Congo. It was a regional project. Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Congo. That's how China envisaged this project.
Why do you
But
think
because
so?
of, why do I think?
Why do you think that was the end goal? Was it to open up the market? Was it to open up the transport line? What do you think was
Because
the
of because of Belt and Road Initiative. That's
really?
China's ambitious economic uh, objectives globally to connect the world to Beijing. So going to Mombasa, from Mombasa to Beijing, to do what?
And why do you think
To help
Congo
the
is a place of
modernization of
interest?
China.
Anyway, let me just
Pardon?
stop. I mean, what I'm saying is, I listened to President Ruto when Museveni was coming to the country to extend the SGR, and President Ruto publicly stated that the reason why they want this railway line to end up in Congo, it's because we want to collect their gold so that we can come and build our country. Maybe that's why China wanted that. But again, probably I'm reading too much into political public statements. I want to join the next speaker, and I apologize for cutting you short again, Weston. Budangori has been waiting. I love to listen to him. And Bundi, next time you rebrand, just tell me it's Mkenya, and I will remember that. Budangori, the mic is yours, kindly.
Am I audible?
Sure you are. Kindly proceed.
Okay. First of all, I would love to appreciate for the opportunity, and allow me to start with something that Bundi talked about, and Bundi mentioned some politicians which he claims that don't have the clout. Meaning that these people are not, from my understanding, is that they are not popular enough to vie for presidency. And I think there was a guy who talked about misplaced something, and I think this argument is misplaced in the sense that I'm one of those people who believes in that kind of bottom-up kind of system where we build a system from the bottom up. What do I mean? I mean that as the people, we are the government. If we are the government, the people we elect, like the president, those people we elect them to work for us. Therefore, it means that we have to have the capacity to understand, first of all, what we want as a people, where we are, where we want to be, and then decide who can take us there. Now, with that understanding, it means that now we are able to look at Obedi or Western or even you and reach a conclusion that given where we are and where we want to go, It is only Bundi who can take us there because of these qualities after studying him over time, maybe based on the positions that he was holding before. Now, you see, now we have a reason to elect him, not based on the fact that he's able to persuade us, but because we as a people understand what we want. So bottom up means that people are enlightened, they have the knowledge, and they know what to choose so that we don't end up in a situation like what we have today, where you experiment with your vote, then realize later that you made a mistake, then start complaining, then start risking other people's life to go and die because you want to storm State House, which is a very stupid idea if you think critically. But anyway, it's worth trying for those who want. But we can avoid these kind of things if only we can allow ourselves to think critically before making decisions. If we can avoid talking too much, but listening too much, more, and thinking critically, so that whenever we are making a decision, we make the right decision. What do I mean? I mean that if you already know that Maraga is good, the only problem is popularity. And if everybody you talk to can tell you, yes, Maraga is good, but the problem is that he's not popular, then why can't you make it your effort to make Maraga popular so that you end up with the kind of president that you want, rather than leaving the best, settle on mediocre just because the mediocre is able to convince you? You understand my argument?
Yes, Budangori, as you make that point, just check on your mic. There's so much clipping coming from you. If you can, maybe it's close to your shirt or something. I think you're using your microphone and it's interfering with the call.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please. Yes, you're continuing on the aspect of popularity. If you don't mind, proceed from there. Yeah.
So my argument is simple. If you know that Maraga is a good leader, and if you can ask Budangori and tell you the same, if Western can tell you and Bundi knows, given how popular Bundi is and influential he is, and he knows this person can take Kenya where Kenya needs to go, then why can't you make it your effort to market, to popularize the right candidate, rather than settling on mediocre because he's persuasive, he talks a lot, and then complain later? Because you keep saying the government is the government. You are the government. Whatever the failure you are noting out are a reflection of your own failures to think critically and to make a choice that you will not regret. You are reactive. We talk too much, but we are lacking the ability to think and to make the right choice for Kenya. But we are trying to convince people that now, if that be true, then let us now stop blaming other people. Two, you cannot, my friend, even as you organize this space, there are people who will say that you are not a good host or co-host. But there are some people who will argue that you are good because you are able to ask follow-up questions, listen, and do all these things that probably the best co-host does. So what Western was trying to say is very simple. You cannot argue that Ruto has not done anything. That will be, even a blind person cannot do that. Even a deaf cannot do that. Because you know very well that there's somebody in Kenya today who will tell you that the SHA, our medical bill was paid by SHA. Not all of them, but some. So therefore, it is only wise for you to say, yes, it is working, but not how it should be. I think these areas need improvement. But then again, I understand the opposition side, because by doing that, you are helping the government to achieve. And if they achieve, it means that you have no room for mediocre to come in, because then if it's working, why change it? You've had that, I'm very sure. And this is very complicated game, so you can understand. So therefore, you criticize everything, even when you know you are lying, because I'm very sure somebody around their area, there's a market. There's a road somewhere, not much, but there's something. So we can say, yes, we expected much, but whatever you've given us is not what we expected. But then for you to argue that effectively, you have to wait until the end of his term. So again, we come back to what somebody said about Gen Zs. And I understand what Gen Zs tried to do, which was very important when they were dealing with finance bill. But after that, we must not deal with issues as Gen Zs, boomers, and all these kind of things. We need to unite as Kenyan people and look at the challenges that are facing us and decide together how to move forward. Because I'm very sure that there are things that the older people can learn from the younger generation. And there are things that the younger generation can learn from the older people. Coming together, we are even stronger than operating separately in different groups, because divided we fall, united we stand. And therefore, we seek to make sure that all Kenyans work together. And allow me to deal with something which is a more serious, but I think slightly out of what we are discussing. And this is something to do with Sifuna going to Kisumu on Sunday. And I like Sifuna very much. I'm one of his supporters. And he said that he's a student of Baba. One thing that I've learned, if you followed Baba critically, you will understand that he was the kind of a person who will not force himself to go, for example, in Rift Valley, when he understands that there still needs to be something to maybe do to make sure that the people on the ground understand you. He did not do things by force. And I think that was even understood by the former president. You understand, when he decided to come to Kisumu is when things were okay and he came. So I think it is good. I want that guy to go to Kisumu. But I'm a Luo, and I understand sometimes these people can be hostile. And it's not because everyone is hostile to him. But I think he needs to find a way to do things right, so that by the time he's going there, the ground is prepared in such a way that he can be received and be listened to, because people need to listen. We need to listen to everyone across the country. But again, don't make it in such a way, because my concern with Sifuna, the reason why I'm saying this, and this is why I was even more cautious when people are talking about Babu becoming kingpin of the Luo region. And I felt that when I look critically, for me, I think it was more about his ability to bring people out to protest and do all these kind of things. And my fear was that if anything can happen to him, let's say probably somebody shoots him or anything happens, then Kenya can
That's a
become
very serious
chaotic.
thought process, Budangori. But you are speaking to something that I agree with partly when you talk about.
Just let me finish. Let me finish
Yes.
this part, and then you
Yes,
interrupt.
please.
Kindly.
Yes, kindly.
So the point I'm raising is this. I'm concerned with Sifuna because I saw a headline which said sometimes back, Sifuna is a walking dead. And then I recently watched a video by Waruinge which says he's something like a target. And I'm saying, if this guy goes in a very chaotic environment like Kisumu and somebody shoots him, and then that will cause even much bigger
Again,
problem.
Budangori, I kindly ask you to not persuade us to think about shootings here. I think it's good enough to just say, are you afraid about his security? That's good enough. Kindly.
Good. Thank you for correcting me, and I appreciate that. Sometimes maybe, language is very, especially Kizungu is not my language, but I agree with you on that, because you understand we are living in a country where even opposition can kidnap themselves and come up with a statement and say these are men from Rift Valley, a unit from Rift Valley instituted to do political blah blah. But if you can remember the Kiumburi, the guy who was kidnapped in front of a church and then dumped somewhere in a tea plantation in Kiambu, and later on it turned out that actually it wasn't the government. Now, when I look at Sifuna, what was expected was that Sifuna will destroy ODM and that will weaken the government. But if you look at what Sifuna has turned out to be today, he's made even the opposition side look like I don't know what. And that means that he's even a threat not only to the government, but even to the opposition side. And so that means you cannot trust you that maybe the government can target him, or I think I feel like I'm concerned with his life, and I think he should do the right thing by ensuring that by the time he can go to Kisumu, because we need him. We need him. Kenya need a younger leader, and I don't want to settle on people like the old guards who are part of the problem, but these are young people around him. They are young people who can think critically, that can bring new ideas. And these are the people we need, and we need these people to be safe. But he also needs to demonstrate that he understands the politics of Baba like he claims to be, so that we can reach Canaan with him. With that, I rest my case.
Court FM. Let the music play.
All right, and Budangori there with very strong, serious stuff he's raising. But again, I don't think we are going to pursue that line of thought. But you're welcome to share your, opinions about the security concern. And indeed, Budangori has very serious issues that he's raising, because we have seen the growing concerns around how our politics is organized. Gunuism, and to the extent that I think the governor of Nairobi has been under the receiving end because of appointing an individual that the public believed to be a non-Gun into the board of one of the hospitals in the capital. And therefore, when you talk about security concerns, that is indeed something that we need to discuss. And to some extent also, the IEBC has come out strongly to say if things proceed as they are, they might just penalize or lock out candidates who are engaged with guns. But really, nani mjinga hapa? Have we not been the same people who have allowed police and guns to work together? In fact, if you remember, just before there were maandamano, I believe sometime last year in the capital, a group of young people believed to be goons drove in motorcades of Boda Boda into the capital. You know how that went, and you know the faces that were leading that procession. But that is besides the talk. We are discussing the streets or the ballot, and we are almost coming to the end of the conversation. But I think when Budangori talks about a good example of the likes of Sifuna restraining themselves from interacting with the people, I'm conflicted, because Western already said, why should we have leaders who rotate about their domain and not go to other parts of the country? So who should we be questioning? Is it the security apparatus? Is it the political organization? Or we, the people who believe those people are a threat to national security? Let's go to you. I saw a hand. Quick response from you, Bundi, and then Dr. Mofo, as we try to come to the conclusion. Let's start with you, Bundi, kindly.
Thank you, Eli. Eli, I just want to make some 3 points, I think, in the shortest time possible. Number one, there is some people with selective amnesia on, what opposition is doing. They are saying that opposition is in one corner or the other. Today, the United Opposition is in Coast Province. Coast is not Mount Kenya. Coast is not Ukambani. And I think that is something that you must realize, that people have been moving across the country. They've been interacting with other people, with people across the country. And what is making even some people within the United Opposition not move in these countries It is because of these spontaneous acts of violence that we're experiencing. A senator was attacked in Kisumu in broad daylight. Our old senator was attacked, and the CS for Interior says that these goons cannot be traced. So this is the kind of situation that you are seeing people are taking, first of all, personal security for themselves. You cannot afford to go to an area which basically you will be met with the resistance and which there will be an ultimate violence from that. Secondly, Eli, is this. When we speak about the politics of conmanship, in 2022, I just want to refresh and jog our memories. In 2022, at the height of the presidential election campaigns, it is President William Ruto, the then deputy president, who was saying that Uhuru Kenyatta had taken development projects, to some areas because of his political rapprochement with Raila Odinga. And the same thing, this is the kind of thinking that some people are having out here, that people are saying areas are marginalized. It's not about marginalization of some areas. Actually, I can tell you for a fact that, Ella, if you do some budgetary analysis and historical analysis of the budgetary cycles from 1963 to today, you will be finding that some of these areas which people are assuming to be basically marginalized have been receiving money from the national government. At the same time, their leaders have been sitting in top echelons of the national government. So what is this aspect of marginalization that people are trying to say, it's about equity? This is about poke barreling politics, which Ruto has actually been doing. You go around, you launch a project, you just leave it to come after 6 months, you launch the same project, you leave it, you make it to be an issue for political campaigning. The third thing is this, Eli. It is not state that kill people. It's people, presidents, it's leaders who make deliberate, fiats for people to be killed. It is just last year when President William Ruto said that police officers should shoot should shoot people in the leg. At the same time, we had his Interior Cabinet Secretary, Kipchumba Murkomen, saying no, they shouldn't be shot at the legs. They should be shot and killed. This is the kind of thing that we are saying. It is not about the state. It's about the individual who is sitting at the helm. It's the person who is giving these orders. Because once you realize that you're losing power as a president, once you realize that your power is actually eviscerating by the day, you must make sure that you're adjusting. And one of the things that you basically do as a defense is to ensure that you keep people in these cycles that make no sense. I want to say this, Eli, and it's actually which is shared by majority of the people, that Kenyans are becoming very conscious. They are learning what is happening in the country. You cannot carry on the same thing each and every time and and expect us to welcome you. In 2022, the same president was complaining about the prices of fuel. It was about mismanagement and corruption. But the same thing is happening today. He never realized then that there was Ukraine versus Russia war. Today is realizing the lies that he has been saying are catching up with him. We must make sure that we vote leaders who are ready to take responsibility for the actions that they are having. And that is why I said earlier that we are experiencing tragic leadership, tragedy in leadership, from the national government to the county government and even to the local areas. There is no person who is committed to being responsible for the actions that they are doing. They must apportion the blame to another person, which is not sustainable. And that is why we are saying going forward that as a country, yes, we've realized there are some things that have not been happening rightly, and we need to correct these things progressively. We need to ensure that we are making some steps towards righting the wrongs that have been in history. Let us be, I think it's a matter of being objective. Even as you support William Ruto, it's a matter of being objective. You cannot say that Ruto is not having a competitor today. He is feeling the heat of the opposition. He's feeling the heat of opposition. Actually, even you've been hearing what has been saying, oh, it is only people who say that Kenya, things are basically not working in this country. Like, I can tell you for a fact, hospitals, these are things that government should be basically making sure that Kenyans are having, but they are not working. These are the bare minimums that at least any country would want to give its citizens. It's not about the grand promises that you make. It's not about the lofty promises that you make. It's not about these big dreams of the countries that you want to be. Just be like your country. Make sure that the environment in your country is habitable. Make sure that Kenyans can be happy. And another issue is this, Eli, on what Budangor was saying about the issue of security. We saw last year when President was having some rounds in Nairobi, goons were accompanying his motorcade. So this is and even police officers who are working hand in hand with goons during demonstrations. So this is not about, it's about a government which is basically trying to save itself through any available means. And that is why you've seen that issues of violence have been like each and every day. You cannot find a person going around, doing his campaign without having, an incident of violence. These are things that we cannot continue to countenance as a country. And that is why I believe that we must stop, normalizing this mediocrity in leadership, because that is what we've done. Because in as much as we're saying, the issue of Gaucho is something which is, it has a lot of interpretations. But one thing that you must realize is this: these are areas that require people with expertise. In as much as it comes from ghetto, yes, given that. But again, at the end of the day, I feel that we are even becoming so much so hard about him, because we have members of parliament who are class 2 dropouts. We have our old CS who I think who we know is education history. Even Governor Sakaja himself. So these are things that as a nation we must adjust at. If we change leadership, we make sure that there is accountability within our leadership, because that is what we're feeling. We are not going to find these mediocres that we're having around, because this is just a circus. It is just a clown show each and every place. There is no person who is taking accountability. You laying blame to the other person. You're saying, oh, this part of, no, this is not how we're going to build this country. So Eli, I think that let us be very objective in the analysis that we make. There are those things that we have seen as a country are not progressing the right direction. We've seen people being killed. We've seen, some orders, very, 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 very retrogressive orders being given by the government. And this is not how we build a nation. We want this country to be fair. We want this country to work for each and every Kenyan. That is what we desire. That is actually the goal of any country, to make sure that life is bearable for all Kenyans. But the government is not adjusting to these things. The government is just stuck in its own reality that, oh, we have support. No, it cannot be working like that. And again, let us not regionalize these things, because Eli, there is this other issue that is cropping up, that once a problem is coming, people tend to regionalize it. It's a specific region. These are issues which are of national essence. They are issues of national importance. And when we see some member of parliament saying that, we are not going to allow a rally to proceed in Kisumu, that speaks a lot of things. That language itself is, it itself speaks a lot of things. So this is a country that will require a lot of fixing in most of the areas. But again, we must start with leadership at the top. We've seen what is happening in the country. At least in 2027, let us make sure that we make these amendments. They may not come, as an one-hit wonder, but they can come progressively by electing leaders who are responsible. Because William Ruto has shown completely that he is not, interested. It's all about money, 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 and money. You see the kind of shillings, the kind of billions that we are seeing each and every day in headlines. It is very sickening to be in this country, actually, to learn of these things each and every day. You cannot find something good about your country. You're just finding, oh, this money has been lost, this has been lost. It cannot work like that. We need at least people who are committed, to change this country. This is my firm belief, and I believe in elections, a ballot revolution. Maybe in history it has never corrected these things. It has never made people to realize all what they wanted. But again, let us just give it a try, because I am not believing that we should stick in going to street, people being killed, and then the government tells you that we are going to compensate you for killing. This is very wrong. You kill people and then you tell them there is 2 billion shillings that you're going to earmark for your compensation. That is not right. We need leaders who make sure that each and every time a mistake happens, they take responsibility, and every time that there is public pressure on something, they come out and publicly make an admission that something is not going well, so that at least we can see that leaders are accountable, but not about this blame shifting, this scapegoating, this kind of pass backing. This is not what we want going forward. So the fact is that let us stop to normalize mediocrity in our leadership. When we will stop doing that, I think we shall be making some baby progress. But until then, we are just going to be stuck in this circus. Thank you, Eli.
All right, that is Bundi. And Bundi, you have really downloaded a lot of information in a short, presentation. But we apologize for the pressure. We really must start winding up. There's something you mentioned about Murkomen, but allow me to just quickly check on that, because I believe the individual that made those statements is Belgut Senator. Is it Member of Parliament? Belgut, what is his name? Senator Koech, is it? Belgut member of parliament, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, the Belgut member of parliament, Senator, not senator, but Belgut member of parliament, Koech MP, is the one who made those statements alluding to that the police should actually go lethal and not Murkomen. Murkomen was on the firing line because he seemed to have suggested that the police were not carrying a toy with them. That said, I want to also bring to your attention, ladies and gentlemen, that the Kenya National Commission of Human Rights have a draft reparation document, but it's also interesting because it touches on the issue that Mkenya just mentioned on the perspective of when people get eliminated by their government through chaos or enforced extrajudicial cause, then there's compensation. Maybe you might want to peruse through that document and find out if you do agree with some of those proposals. Because one thing I love about what they're saying, and I think IPOA has also been pushing for it, it's they are looking at the guiding principles such as victim-centered approach, which means all process shall prioritize the needs, dignity, and the well-being of victims. Victims shall be treated with respect, their voices heard, and their particular circumstances taken into action. And now this talks about those who maybe survive. How about those who succumb to such? Interesting guidelines. If you have time, just try to look through the draft suggestions. I want to look at Dr. Mofo, if you don't mind. The mic is yours. Let's try to work around the clock.
Thank you, Eli. Eli, I'm a big fan of Bundi, not only because he's charismatic, but because, he's a person of lucid mind, coherent, and, quite sensitive to, or rather, to the reality of the day. And that gives me a problem, Eli, because, when you have moderation that endorses someone's opinion, only for it to go ahead and lack basis in terms of the way it's argued, and most especially lack of evidence, there goes a problem. Between now and the time I had this kind of discourse with you, it's about a month, and I think there was a statement made about SGR ending someone's land. I asked that, and I think you've had time to do your research, and you can authoritatively invalidate those statements. What I want to say, Eli, is that there are these people who ask about the alternatives. What does the opposition, the alternative, offer? And this is not any logical argument that they present. It's something that was rehearsed somewhere by William Ruto, thrown out to the people to consume, and those people who wanted to be, fall for this kind of traps, myopically continue with that trajectory. For me, what I want to say is that there's nothing more drastic and affirmatively consequential in salvaging and liberating ourselves today than advertent reversal of the indiscretions entrenched by William Ruto and his regime. And therefore, Eli, my argument here is that the indisputable terms of references between the governed and the governor, and I've said this before, is not a political theatrics decorated in manifestos, but the Constitution. And therefore, I continue to tell you that Mr. William Ruto is in utter insubordination of the Constitution. This one makes him, totally an outragey, unsuitable for solving our problems of the day. We therefore don't need somebody who is a Jesus Christ or who represents some kind of Puritanism to correct the economic terrorisms and totalitarianism that Ruto has continued to incentivize and regularize. I just want to wind up, and I just refer to the subject of the day, where you asked the streets or the ballot. For me, I told you I'm a student of Malcolm X, and I'll put it as brutal as it is. the ballot or the bullet. The choice will be addressed by the emergency to reverse the today's democratic and economic retrogression. And if the ballot is so much compromised, in terms of the electoral integrity, then the bullet is inevitably irresistible. Thank you, Eli. Have a good evening.
Well, you're punching your weight according to your size, and I love it, Dr. Mofo. You almost went ballistic on me. But I don't endorse people's statements. I question. I love to have you in another set to discuss further. But that's it. Academia, you want to make your final remarks kindly?
Okay. Thanks, Eli. Let me conclude on my point. Eli, it would be disingenuous with utmost respect to say that there are areas in Kenya that have not been marginalized since independence. It would be with profound respect, that is false. The Constitution of Kenya 2010 recognizes that marginalized community, marginalized groups, and the actions that the government should take to bring them to par with other regions. Marginalization is not only about infrastructure, even appointments in government positions. So facts cannot be misconstrued. That's a fact. There are facts there, you can check. Again, it is not true to say this, whether they are perceived or not, marginalized areas, that they have been receiving national share, as we have been told that there is national share that people need to divide among themselves, that there are areas, those areas again, which are perceived to be developed, have been developed courtesy of good leaders from those regions. Again, blatant lie. That's not true. We know how government in Kenya has been operating since independence. We know there are people who have been disadvantaged in terms of appointment due to their political stand or otherwise. And there are people who have been favored. We are either to accept there is historical injustices across the board, or we ignore and say that was then this, now, and then we proceed. But we cannot be selective when reading history. So I believe we must be very honest to say it is true. There are many places in Kenya, or few places in Kenya, that have been marginalized by the government. And those are things that informed the idea of coming up with a devolved unit to address those historical injustices, so that people are not denied on the basis of where they come from. They get their share. Whether you are in Turkana, under devolved unit, you'll get. And you can see even today, under the current constitution, the president or the executive still has a lot of power. And that's why people rotate out of presidency. And that's why it is a life and death for people to claim that president. Why do you think it is so heated that nobody's talking about any other seat except the State House? Because they know, and even under the current arrangement, president dictates a lot of things. And you can get so much to the extent on how close you are to the State House. This is a glaring open in the air. So you don't need even somebody to tell you. You can just observe by just looking at things how they are. So we must accept certain facts. So it is not true to say that we have not been marginalized as Kenyans across the board. That's not true. It is true. So let's do that. Then I end by saying this. You see, the opposition, the reason why, and they have made it, the reason why they don't want to say that they have a candidate is because they believe that if they say that one, then it will give Ruto, it will open that Ruto, so Ruto understands how this is the candidate, and now let's proceed. And that is the reason why declaring candidate for opposition has been a problem in Kenya. They are doing it thinking that they don't want to expose it to the government because of certain reasons, which with me, it might be true for them. It's okay, it's fine. But what I know, the other side is Kalonzo Musyoka in waiting. It is something that you can just see. There is no any other person that is going to be produced or to be a flag bearer in the united opposition. But there is something that Bundi said about Sifuna. Sifuna, people believe that he has come to the political limelight and is now in the league of principles. So the way things are, if Sifuna crosses to join United, and this my view, is that the Linda Wananchi is just ODM. So it's not that is different from what is just ODM, because even if you look at the faces, all of them key figures, faces there, just ODM members, but they are just raising their stake. So if they were to cross to the other side, I demand that maybe Sifuna becomes the presidential candidate. Then where does that leave Kalonzo Musyoka? And I also agree that Kalonzo Musyoka cannot deputy anybody's now. Kalonzo Musyoka should be the presidential candidate, whichever way. He must be there. So in that event, it means for those who are supporting Linda Wananchi but are not affiliated to either United or ODM, there are very many people who are following this because they believe maybe this one will offer an alternative parallel to others. But if you choose to join one side, then people who are there, not because you are a ODM or not because you are United, you are a DCP, are left on their own. What do? They can either to join either way, either join Ruto or just proceed to the other side. So it's a very tricky, it's a very challenging situation for the other side, because on this side, Ruto is already automatic. But on the other side, the calculation is very tricky. And if you look, the calculation is based on tribal. Kalonzo is there, who is deputy is Western. You don't want Western. If you don't give them deputy, what happens? They will ask, what is our stake? How does that one resonate or relate to Mount Kenya and other parts and all this? So it's a very difficult situation, even for the United to come up with that team. And that tells me, as I learned, if that is the case, then by very our own nature of politics, it will take tribal angle. And once it goes there, you know, mtu yetu, siasa ya mtu yetu, you will be asked, now you are united, what is our stake there? Now you are in with Ruto, what is our stake here? And that's the politics, what I said, that will not give us result 2027. So let's do it a ceremonial thing and proceed with our normal lives post 2027. Nothing tangible for me will change. That's the same characters. We will end up with them. Asante sana, Eli.
Well, academia seems very dissatisfied with the current crop of leadership, including the fact that the status quo will remain, the same players will come 2027. But what I find also very striking is the fact that we have completely decided we will not have a Gen Z issue on this conversation, or we have opted to go back to where we feel comfortable in the past. But I wonder, what next? I would love to get really under 5 minutes from you, Weston, to give me your conclusion on the topic of the night. But interesting is also the fact that Mr. Academia mentions that there is nothing like us ignoring marginalization has happened, and there's very little that has happened to elevate the other communities. Because when you look at politics in our country, what matters is the national government, or the cabinet for that matter, probably, because people feel if I'm closer to the presidency, then my wins changes. I will ask this, and it's rhetoric. How many counties do we have in the country? How many of them do we have as tribes in our country? Think through that and find out, can we be talking about marginalization if almost all of us have their own government? Western.
Look, there is science and pseudoscience. Students of research will tell you that. In pseudoscience, people reject facts and completely, no matter how glaring evidence is, they'll reject it. Let's go to population and housing surveys in Kenya. They are there. And if they are not accessible, you can go to the respective government department and they will give you those reports. If they are selling or what, you can read them. They capture inequities and marginalization and levels of poverty across the country. They will. They will show you what they call human development indices used internationally to gauge people's living standards, life expectancy, name it, access to all those benefits of modernity, paved roads, hospitals, schools, name it. They are there in Kenya because no responsible government would not have those records. Those records are there. If you don't want to go there, go to National Cohesion and Integration Reports since that body was formed. What do they tell you? They tell you that from 63 to date, the state has been monopolized by community members from the president's ethnic group. Fact. Those statistics are there. So when somebody's in power, the state, the bureaucracy, is disproportionately dominated by his co-ethnics. For those who don't know, power is a resource. For those who don't know, power is a resource. There are things, if you don't know people who are in power, you have no clue about those things, and those are opportunities. The Kenyans who have met other Kenyans abroad who are on scholarship, and they'll say, but you want to tell me the government issues scholarships? They'll tell you yes. How? You don't know those things. Education is not a resource. You think it's not? So it's denialism. Like if you're a pseudoscientist, you deny facts, you deny evidence, you thrive on alternative facts, you create your own parallel universe. That's what we're seeing on this platform. Let me put it to you, Eli. From 63 to 2013, how many years are those? The state was centralized. State was centralized for those 50 odd years. It was. What it means is that national resources were concentrated in Nairobi in the person of the president and his coterie, and they would decide how to spend that money. It's just like a piggy bank, some pocket money, pocket change. So you want to tell me a country where power was abused for 50 years, those wrongs can be righted, I don't know how many years, count from 2013 to now. When you tell us, okay, northeastern counties, why are they complaining? There is a devolved. No, I'm saying if I step on your foot and I'm convinced that you're not feeling pain, I'm a psychopath. Get me clearly. If I put my boot on your neck and I'm convinced that you're not feeling any pain, why are you crying? I am a psychopath. I'm not a normal human being. That I can subject you to pain, but expect you not to complain, not to feel pain. That's not how a normal human being thinks. They don't think like that. So we think that people in Turkana, people in Homa Bay, people in Busia, people in Kwale, people in Mandera, they have always had it easy like everybody else across the country. Why are they complaining? The only psychopath would look at things like that in defiance of evidence and facts and reports by the government and other international organizations that have been interested in poverty levels and inequalities in Kenya. Those reports are there. That you have not read them, or you've read them but you've refused to believe, subscribe to that evidence, it's no reason to come here and just spew things that don't start scrutiny. That's the point we're making, Eli. Like, can't we have a civil conversation? The other thing is this. It's not streets or ballot, because streets, I take it as protests. Protests or picketing is part of democratic tenets. In a democracy, you have a right to protest, to picket. But when you juxtapose streets against the ballot elections, streets becomes a euphemism for something much more hideous, which was mentioned here, the ballot, the bullet, violence, insurrection. No one wins. That I can put it to you. No one wins that route. You don't win. No matter how you are aggrieved, you can never win that route. That's the point. You can't. You cannot win. And there's evidence also just around you. There's evidence. You don't have to mention. Around you, in Kenya, in Africa, you can tell people who took that route, how far it went. You know what? People fight. At the end of the day, the most unfortunate, counterintuitive thing is that they have to go back to sit at table and talk. Doesn't make sense. Why didn't you just talk in the first place? You go butcher one another, you kill one another, you destroy the country, you displace people, and then you know what? You have to sit and talk and share power and right these wrongs that you've refused to right in the first place. Does it even make sense? Who thinks that you can win anything through violence and the barrel of the gun? Well, you can say that because you would watch Kenyans through the TV. You're at a distance and therefore you can watch, you know, ghoulishly. You're ogling at dead bodies in Kenya. What do you gain out of that? But if I'm in Kenya, I've got my people in Kenya, why would I even suggest that as an option out of the stalemate that may be there, or in conclusive elections? Why would I? It doesn't matter where I live. Even for Nigeria, if I don't stay in Nigeria, I'm not a Nigerian. I would not suggest that for Nigerians. Why would I do it? I can't. So I'm saying, look, Eli, whether it is Sifuna or these other people, I'm saying this president is unassailable. He's unassailable. This president can only lose elections depending on the caliber, the quality of his opponents. That point, we cannot hammer it home well enough. We can't. It's rejected. It's rejected. He is only vulnerable to the extent that his opponents are high caliber opponents. High caliber. What do I mean by high caliber? I don't mean they've got more money than he does. I'm talking in terms of thinking, in terms of brains, in terms of strategy. That's what I mean. I don't mean anything else. I don't mean in terms of ethnic votes. I mean in terms of the mind, the brain power. I don't see that. I don't see it. And therefore, he's not the kind of politician who can lose an election when he's ranked against low quality, low energy opponents. I can put it to you for free. I can. And it's not like I'm realizing this now. I realized this when he was running for president for the first time in 2022. I told people this candidate will win, and they didn't believe it. He is going to win. Said, no, he can't. The state is too powerful. He is going to prevail. And later they came and asked me, how did you know? What do you mean by how did I know? Am I not observing what's going on? I was observing what was going on. He is more organized. He's more focused. He's more ruthless. He wants power a lot more than those other guys. He's going to get it. He got it. So what are you saying? Wasn't it harder for him to get this thing in the first place than to run for re-election? Isn't that just common sense? It was much harder in 2022. 2027 is not. It's not. And you can look at him. He was in Muranga today. Those people, If you want to say that's a rented crowd, how do you rent authenticity in life? How do you genuinely rent people to really just genuinely come out to receive you? How do you do it? You teach me that. I want to know. How do you rent people? How do you rent a crowd that comes out so genuinely enthusiastically to receive you? Teach me that strategy, please. Teach me. Yeah, you can poo-poo what he's doing. No, those were rented people. Those people wanted money. He poured money. I can give you money. And look at how you're going to buy people to turn out and just genuinely celebrate you and receive you enthusiastically. You'll have to teach me how you did that. So we're ignoring facts because most people here, they're pseudo-scientists. Well, I wish you well, if that's what you do. Then as I yield, Eli, on Gaucho, this is another logic. Gaucho said Raila promised him that he had spoken to Sakaja. Sakaja will find something for you. One, when I use the word psychopath, this is what I mean. A young man leaves Migori, he's home, he's trying his luck in Nairobi. I hear Gaucho he's lost both parents. He didn't go far in school, so he tries his luck in Nairobi. He gets into a ghetto in Nairobi, and you know, ghettos are violent. You could be killed by the police or gangs, by whoever. So he penetrates and gets into the sanctum of power in Kenya, has the ear of somebody who was as consequential as Raila Odinga. He wants to find something for him so that he lives a meaningful life. So you wanted him to die as, you call him a goon, you wanted him to die as a goon, to be shot as a goon on the streets, mobilizing for violence, doing the bidding of politicians for 1,000 shillings? Is that what you're expecting to happen to him? That because he didn't go far in school, he must just disappear in the dark alleys of the ghetto. He doesn't have a master's. He doesn't have a degree. He doesn't have a PhD. What is he looking for in a board, in a hospital? What is he looking for? You wanted him to go back home in a box, courtesy of political violence? Is that what you wanted? He has got a chance to mold his life. If he wants to go to school, he can also go to school. He'll have money. He can go to school. The school that he missed, that these classes are using, he didn't go to school. He can go to school. George Weah was lampooned when he ran for president in Liberia. R-A-E-O-U. That is what was being used when he ran against Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. He went back to school. He completed school. Next time he ran for president, he won. What are you talking about? Malema in South Africa. He was lampooned. He hadn't gone to school. He made money. He went back to school. A degree, another one. What do you mean? Gaucho has a chance now to write those things. But if he remains in the ghettos, well, he runs the risk of going back home in a box. Is that what you want? I'm asking these questions. These people are lampooning Gaucho. Nairobi Hospital, does it have a board member like Gaucho from the ghetto? Doesn't it have problems, Nairobi Hospital, of looting and plunder, mismanagement? There's even a professor who appeared in court because of that. Is that Gaucho? Is that a ghetto person? I'm saying, let's desist from classism, elitism. That's prejudice. It's prejudice. It doesn't mean if you didn't go far in school, you don't have a right to the finer things of life. What kind of a society is this? You don't have a right. You don't have a right to a good house. You don't have a right to a car. You don't have a right to a job. You don't have a right to a family that you can take care of. Why? Because you
we
didn't go
need
to
to
school.
land, Weston.
Because you didn't go to school.
No, I
No,
did.
we must get these things clearly, because we're talking about change in Kenya, but the mindset is not that of change. It's that of a caste system like in India. We're not going to change Kenya like that. We are too elitist. A professor is good or a professor is good. But why are universities not working? Aren't they run by professors? Do they have reserves? Do they? They don't. They have got problems. And who are the administrators? Professors. Stop it. Stop it. We can differ on all sorts of issues, but please, let's not differ on the basis of class. elitism, tribe, religion, regionalism, and very primordial things that don't take us far. And then the same people
Yes,
who are
Western.
prejudiced, we want a revolution. A revolution about what? To change what? To change William Ruto and bring in an elitist president who will only serve the interest of the moneyed people. Forget about people in the ghettos, poor people, the peasantry. That can't be changed, can it be? It can't.
Sometimes it's very difficult to have an evening conversation and just end it because everyone has things to say and share. And I love the fact that Obeds, Western talks about Gaucho strongly and questions, should he have waited or should we have waited to see him end in a coffin or in a casket so that he can get an equal opportunity? My answer to that is no. My question then becomes, do qualification matter? Because apparently they don't. Everyone can be what they want to be. Too bad I can't sing. I would have sung that song, Obets.
So many vijana.
You know why qualifications cannot matter in Kenya? Because education is not universal. So if you use education as the only yardstick, you're going to discriminate against many Kenyans because it's not universal. You need money to go to school. Orphans,
Western,
if
you need to
nobody comes
land.
to their
Like,
help,
we
will not
really
go to
need
school.
to end this talk.
Yeah.
We can't have it
Yeah.
tonight. We will have it at another time when time allows.
So,
yes.
Eli, I think there's so much that Western speaks to that is true. And I totally, actually, more often than not, maybe many would disagree. He has strong opinions, but I agree to a large extent to what he speaks to. The only challenge I have with this country, and even when we're seeking for that sense of what would be fair, is the fact that this country was set up on a very bad foundation. For far too long, a lot that has not been proper has been promoted. And for way too
Did I lose you, Obed? Is Obed still speaking, or did I lose him? I guess we lost Obed.
I can't hear him.
All right. So, just kindly mute Budangori. All right. Thank you. Obed, we lost you. I think we might have had an interruption from your line. But I'm having a lot of trouble trying to convince the rest of the audience about what Western has shared. And I'll quickly just read the comments. This is by Frederick Munyoki. And again, from all of you who are here, we are multi-streaming the session. So feel free to visit our specific and particular handles. That is at Mizani254 on YouTube, also at CoteFM_KE. This is brain power of Ruto. People keep speaking about why can't we see it in developing Kenya. And I think one thing that I picked out is why are we justifying Gausho's BS? Aren't there any other roles suiting his credentials? And really, that's why I was asking then, does education really matter? Because apparently, if anyone can become anything without qualification, then it's really time for us to reconsider not just our education, but the role of qualifications. I saw the other day in the dailies one school or one college, university, tertiary institution coming under real heavy fire because one, the school was not accredited to issue the certificates and diplomas and the training they are issuing to their students. Number two, the other big issue that the regulator was taking to note is the fact that the school has allowed untrained teachers or unqualified tutors to issue instructions to qualifying students. And that really speaks a lot to the issue of Gaucho. And he is not our subject tonight, but of course his name has popped up courtesy of the issue of Gunism and what it means really to have Nairobi kuwork. Lakini kila mtu anaweza work. Obeds, are you there? I need to really end this talk. The mic was yours.
Yeah, I don't know why you lost me, but the argument I was fronting is that there's much more that needs to be done. We have to consciously, as a nation, as a group of individuals, and as a country, decide that we want a system that is representative of who we are. And that can only be done if people are honest to uproot one that hasn't worked, which is skewed to favor those that have probably even stolen and used state resources to achieve and look like they've done better than others. So even with the ballot, it might not be the end or the only bullet to fix that problem, but we need to progressively and be very clear what we want for ourselves as a country and how long it will take us to get there. And we must have leadership that is honestly wired and desirous of the fact that Kenya can be better, not for a few individuals, but for everyone. But either way, we have a dated destiny. You have your contribution to make. And it cannot be gainsaid that there is value to be gained from every Kenyan participating equally in the civic duty of appointing leadership that would transform this country for the better. I'll leave it there.
Obeds and colleagues, thank you very much for being here. I see we still have mic requests. Unfortunately, we can't. Our time is really, really out. We've had an extension, but I think it was needed to really talk about the issues that we had to talk about tonight. It has not been a brief session.
Eli, I'll give you an assignment over this weekend.
Kindly do, Mwalimu.
As usual, when our politicians speak, we don't listen to them. Raila Odinga, in the run-up to last elections, talked about recognition of prior learning. Go and read and find out what that means. Recognition of prior learning. They will make that part of their policy in the event that they win elections. Go and find out what that means. It was meant to be implemented if Azimio had won elections. Go and find out. We don't listen to them when they talk. We don't. We don't. These things are there in the open.
Then it's time to stop talking about Mike Sonko's qualification, Hassan Joho qualifications, Sakaja's qualifications, and all of us qualifications. Let's just recognize we did a BCD or Abu Kada, and life continues. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid I can't take more speakers. We must call this an end, but also just to let you know, our Court FM app is now available on that is Google Play. Make an effort to go there, download, let us know your feedback on the same. And if you're having iOS or any other app that you love to stream on, you can get the web-based app on our website, that is kotfm.co.ke. Have a great weekend ahead, and remember, the conversation is ending now, but it continues on the timeline. That is why Court FM is the only station that brings you conversations on your timeline in association with Mizani 254. My name is Likuyani Eli. Obezoriku has been my co-host on behalf of every speaker, everyone that made this a possibility. We wish you a great night. Take care, and please don't do anything we wouldn't do ordinarily when we are sober. Good night. We don't need money to be rich.